Hello, hello, hello. Thank you all so much for joining us. We are here for episode 2 of the Pagan Viewpoint. This is really exciting. I am your host, Caleb Van Voren, and that is my co host, Alyssa Ravenwood.
Hi, everyone.
It is a very, very, very snowy day over here in South Dakota. We've been dealing with a blizzard all day. So, I do stream in an area on an exterior wall, so you might hear some wind in the background. Unfortunately, not a whole lot I can do to soundproof that out, so apologies in advance. Um, yeah, so here we are, episode 2.
Well, it's been really rainy this evening, so if you hear thunder or heavy rainfall, don't worry about it. I know for a fact this area does not flood until dead last.
That is good to
So
know. I'm glad to know you're not going to be running out of the apartment
the
anytime
staircase
during the
outside
stream
will
tonight.
turn into a waterfall, though.
That's a good time.
Mm.
Wonderful. So, yeah, so here we are, episode 2. Really exciting. It's going to be a very long thing. But everything starts small. So, onward to our first topic for the night. We're probably going to keep this episode is definitely going to be a fair bit shorter than our first one. So, that's fun.
Well, I mean, we're gonna have less to we're
Yeah.
gonna have less to clarify. I think last time it was the introduction to the pilot that always takes.
Yeah, very, very true. Just a couple of fun little housekeeping things. Just before we dive straight into our first topic for the night. Be sure to follow us on all our fun little social media channels. Really, really awesome. We would really appreciate that. We're the Pagan Viewpoint on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And I think that's about all of them. I think that's all of them.
I
And
think so.
Yeah, so the replay of last week's episode is up in full on YouTube, and there will be some clips going up on YouTube as well over the next couple of days. Um, like over about the next week. The first one goes up tomorrow, actually, so that'll be a lot of fun. And yes, and this show will be running weekly, and so we'll be back next week at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time as well. So be sure to add us into your calendar. A lot of fun. So
Be sure, definitely. We're going to make it consistent, something that I have lacked in a lot of my content lately.
yes, and me too. So, on to our first topic. There's been a lot of things happening in the country health wise over the past obviously several months, and even just the past week. And last week we touched on COVID-19, the vaccine, masks, everything associated with it. This week we wanted to diverge a little bit. We wanted to talk about something that probably near and dear to both of our hearts. Um, Especially, I'm a pretty big advocate in the mental health space, and I believe Alyssa is as well. And in one area that we found a lot of kind of some information and some skills lacking, um, both for me in my personal life, but a lot of people around me. Is kind of interpersonal effectiveness. Pretty broad topic. We'll dive into a couple of specifics here, but yeah, I'll go ahead and let Alyssa take the lead.
Well, one of the ways that I've noticed that this is lacking is just the judgment that I see that's so never ending between groups of people that are, claiming that they are close, teammates, allies, friends, family, what have you. Um, there seems to be this idea that if the closer you get to someone, the more you have a right to judge them and their decisions,
Mm-hmm.
and the more they are then obligated to listen to and heed your words. And that's just the setup that I was taught when I was younger. Is like the longer you know someone, the more weight you should give their words, But I've noticed that the people who are doing the opinion giving are not being very responsible with the way that they go about doing it. Like
Yeah.
they could choose a kinder way to say some of the things that they are trying to get across, but diplomacy is just completely lost. in
Yeah.
translation. It just goes out the window.
Yeah, definitely, and that's something I recognize a lot as well. One of the things, one of the skills that I work on a lot, both in mindfulness practice as well as just especially like in interpersonal effectiveness, everything like that is something called like a non-judgmental stance, and it's something that
Yeah.
a lot of people that in interpersonal effectiveness in particular, a lot of people I found really struggle with. We go into a lot of scenarios, just a lot of interactions in our everyday life, with a whole lot of judgments attached to them. Um,
Mhm.
just from our pre-existing vulnerabilities and experiences, as well as what with education, things we've been taught, but even just assigning judgments to things that don't need a judgment placed on them.
Yeah.
So, like, calling a pen good or bad, I don't know why we're judging a pen like that. Um, yeah, as a kind of real base example, right?
Mm.
Pens aren't good or bad; they just are.
Mm.
They're objects that exist in our world, and so
Yeah.
we can describe their function if they're working or not working, but it can't really assign a
Yeah.
judgment to something. And the same apply. And so you extend that out to a lot of the people you interact with, and
Mm.
it works the same way. Why are people placing a whole lot of judgments and preconceived notions on individuals when they probably don't know all the facts?
Oh
None
yeah,
at all.
and that happens an awful lot. Like, for example, I know a number of people who, rather than buying, real estate, have opted to like live in an RV or a van.
Mm-hmm.
And they get it all the time where people are like, but don't you get tired of being homeless? And they don't seem to understand, those people, they're not homeless, they're houseless. There's a difference. They're not really even struggling at all. They're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
I just feel like there really isn't any need for there to be that judgment there. It's not your life, and they're not hurting it.
Yeah, definitely, and kind of along in that vein. So, like, we kind of slide this into the health aspect, and
Mhm.
obviously that covers a very wide range. It's very very broad, um, but we start to talk about the individual a bit more. Um,
Mhm.
when you start to go into a lot of situations with a lot of preconceived notions and judgments, what you start to do is the same things start to reflect back on yourself. Um,
Mhm.
and so, nearly any experience you have, any emotion you experience or feel, everything
Mhm.
that goes on in your life, you start to attach a judgment to it.
Mhm.
And so, you know, when you're sad, you start to say that I shouldn't feel sad, or I should feel sad, or I should be more sad.
Mhm.
I shouldn't cry. I
Right.
shouldn't. Like, all of a sudden, you're attaching judgments to the feeling and
Yeah.
emotion in of itself.
For me, it would more often be anger. When
Mm-hmm.
I was younger, I was told quite often that whenever I expressed anger, that I'm not allowed to express anger that way. But then I would never be given any sort of okay way to express anger aside from cleaning and doing something that's useful, which was not very effective.
No, it's not. And yeah, and so once you start to place all those judgments on emotions, either good or bad, because a lot of people will also
Mm.
idolize um, and place judgments on things like happiness and joy, and they'll start to say like those are the good emotions. So those are the ones I should
Yeah.
experience. When emotions are aren't good or bad, they're just tools. They just serve a purpose. And
Yeah, I've had a lot of people try and shame me because they say I'm not in choosing to be happy.
yeah,
And that I should be choosing to focus only on the happy things. It's part of that toxic positivity that so many people
mm-hmm.
um is so very many people just indulge in nowadays and inflict on people, really.
Yeah.
Because making me feel bad about feeling bad is not going to make me feel better.
Yeah, exactly. And really diving into it, what it starts to do is it starts to really color your perception of yourself and the way you experience life, and then it starts to change the way that you perceive the way others should be experiencing their lives. Um, and that's where it really like ties back to interpersonal effectiveness even more so, in the sense that because you're so deep judging all of your emotions and all your life experience constantly, and not evaluating it through a factual stance, which isn't to say a rational stance. It's actually just a check and describe things factually, so you can better ascertain hey, what emotions am I feeling, what emotion would be appropriate for this experience, and what emotion would be appropriate in this interaction with this individual. Like if this person is going and choosing van life, why does that make me angry?
Like why would that make someone angry?
Yeah,
is
and
one thing that I just don't understand. It's like they happy, why would I be angry?
Yeah, and what it really comes down to is a lot of self-invalidation of your own emotions, which comes from judging it.
It's like maybe they wanted to do something like that, but someone close to them that they like respected told them that it was a waste of time, and only like dregs did that. I have plenty of family who would say something exactly like that.
Yeah, definitely, and
so.
And it starts to become a deep problem because it starts to color every single interaction you have with yourself, with your family, with strangers you meet on the internet, passing by. All of a sudden you start to realize that every single interaction you have is just filled with a whole host of preconceived judgments and and vulnerabilities, and it triggers a lot of an emotional response in you, or a hyper rational response in you, and individuals struggle to interact effectively, and that's one of the things severely lacking in the mental health space in the U.S. And we'll be talking about this a lot on the show, just the inadequate mental health space in the country, and even as we gain more mental health awareness and even more positivity surrounding like mental health struggles, not toxic positivity, just so like it's okay to struggle. One of the things that I've found that's severely lacking in that conversation is how to interact interpersonally effective. Like not just to start valuing your own mental health, but just to start figuring out how does my own mental health affect how I interact with other people, and how do those interactions affect my mental health.
And in that, on that note, one of the other things that I've really been noticing this for the last many years actually, and it's been bothering me. I see this thing that happens where it's either that someone is either a people pleaser, or there are these occasions where they will go entirely in the opposite direction, and they will not in any way take into account the discomfort they inflict onto people because of their behavior. They have this idea of, well, this is just me, I'm not going to change at this point, why, just deal with it, acting as though like you're having an issue with it is only your problem, and to an extent it is. But I just feel like maybe if we could just all focus for a moment on just being a little kinder to one another, not just because that other person might be going through something hard, and whatnot, because you hear that, just also because what use is there in inflicting pain on someone else?
Well, and they don't even
just
need to
with
be.
everyday interaction. Like you could choose a nicer way to say that. For example, just I've had this occasion happen where I'll go shopping with some girls, right? And one of them will come out of the dressing room and they'll just be like, "Hey, how does this suit me? How does it make me look? How does it sit on my body?" And there will be like 2 or 3 of the girls out of this group who will just completely rip into the outfit. And I mean, meanwhile, if I think it doesn't look good, all I'm going to say is I really don't think it suits you.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really that simple. Like, I didn't need to be mean about it or really like dig in full throttle on that outfit just to give my opinion on it. I feel like people put an awful lot of effort into being unnecessarily where that's it's not needed.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And the big thing too is one of the things that we'll explore on a lot more in interpersonal effectiveness over the coming months is you can't control the way that someone else reacts to you. Um, like you can't. It doesn't matter. You could be the most effective person in the world, and if the other
Yeah.
individual is lacking skill, right?
Mhm.
You have no control over how they react to you, and you shouldn't. That's okay.
Hmm.
Um, but what that means is like it creates more responsibility for you. You
Mhm.
don't control how they react, but you are in charge of how effective you're being,
Mhm.
and you have to take responsibility of like anything that you're doing in the relationship, um, in the interaction, whether it be a short, simple one in public,
Mhm.
or a deep personal relationship.
Yeah.
They you bear um, sole responsibility for your own actions.
Yeah.
Um,
Which is why, like, I try and tell people it's okay to set that boundary, though. Like, because a lot of people they hear is like, you bear responsibility for your own actions. And they hear, because they come from like a family like mine, say, where they're encouraged to keep the peace and bearing responsibility is translation going to suffer if you push this boundary and try and enforce it. It's okay if you're in a situation like what I described. What I usually do is I will say, look, you can rephrase that kinder, or one of us is leaving.
yeah,
Because then
definitely.
you get that very solid, but controlling your behavior and your actions doesn't just mean staying there and bearing down and just dealing with it. It means you can walk away.
Yeah, like it's the ultimate empowerment, not disempowerment.
You don't even have to explain yourself. You don't have to say, it's like, sorry, I can't deal with this negativity, or you don't have to say nothing. You can just turn around and walk away. I'll tell
Yeah.
you what, there was this one time someone kept trying to fight with me, and I just looked at them, and then I turned around and walked away.
Yeah.
And they were so confused
Mm-hmm.
that by the time they realized, that I'd walked away and got insulted by it, I was already around the corner and bolted. But you can walk away from those situations, if they refuse to respect your
Oh yeah,
boundaries. And that's
definitely.
part of owning the consequences of your actions, because if you choose to stay around people who consistently violate your boundaries and invalidate your feelings and experiences, um, well then, you're allowing that into your space, and that's the consequence of your action, is that it's going to then be in your space more.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and there is, oh gosh, so much more that we can dive into and keep talking about.
So much more. This
But
this is something we're probably going to talk about every once in a
yeah,
while.
yeah. But
For
we
a
just wanted
while.
to start broaching the subject as well. Probably in these
Mhm.
first couple episodes, kind of breach relatively shallowly into a lot of really vast subjects. Um, because they're just kind of important, and we want to start bringing the fact that yeah, we kind of talk about them on the show, and kind of point out, hey,
Mhm.
this is kind of what direction we're heading with this, and
Right.
lead into some interesting conversations and dialogue. Um,
Mm.
but that should I'm kind of want to leave it there. I think for tonight.
Yeah,
So it's really
I
effective.
think that's good for our first topic. I think we're about ready for a break before we get on to the next
Yeah,
topic.
and so we're just going to take a couple minute break. We will be right back, and be sure to stick around, everyone, and we'll see you in just a moment. And we're back, everyone.
Hey everyone.
Thank you all so much for sticking around. We took a quick break. So,
Please make sure to like and share and subscribe and comment and all that jazz.
yes.
So that we can get as many as possible, you guys.
Yeah, definitely. We'll
Remember to do all
greatly,
that
greatly
stuff.
appreciate it. Now, we cover three main topics here on the Bacon Viewpoint. You know, health, life, and nature. They're really, really broad. And life encompasses a lot of things. But
Yeah.
a lot of times it's probably going to dovetail a bit into politics. And so, of course, we're a very political country, very polarized country at the moment. And one of the things that interests both Alyssa and I quite a lot, and tends to interest a lot of people that I see both online and in person, but never seem to vote, is election reform. This is something that's very near and dear to my heart. We touched on it last week when we were talking about the kind of breakdown of social integrity and individual power, and kind of in American society in particular. And
Yeah.
one of the big things that we started to kind of slide on into is this concept of changing the way in which we elect people. I have a whole lot of opinions on that, but
Yeah.
I'll let you start off and see where we go.
Well, I'd say that the main thing having to do with election reform that really gets my attention is the fact that the biggest complaint I hear is that nobody feels like their vote actually counts. Like, if it's clear that their guy is not the front runner, and there's a good likelihood someone else is going to win, well, the likelihood just increases even more, because they get this notion in their head that, well, you're wasting your vote then. That's where that Blue No Matter Who came from. I maintain it was a con job the whole time. It was not the right way to go about it. They should have worked better on their campaign. That's a different subject. But that's the whole notion. That's where that comes from. Is why so many people are pushing for ranked choice voting now, because then no matter what you do, no vote is a wasted vote. Because if your guy is clearly not going to be the winner and not in the running, you get your second or third or fourth runner-up. And it just cycles through until someone's got the whole tally.
Yeah, definitely. Ranked choice voting is gigantic.
It's really not.
And a big part of the thing is, such on Blue No Matter Who, a lot of it comes out of the fact that you look at basically Hillary Clinton lost 3 main states by a combined total of about 117,000 votes in 2016. Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. All 3 by the slimmest of margins. All 3 well within the vote tallies of by a wide margin of the Green Party and the Libertarian Party. Specifically the Green Party, because Libertarians don't tend to vote for the DNC. Mostly because about 90% of Libertarians I know are super right wing. They don't kind of acknowledge themselves as such. They just cry themselves as the independents of politics, but no, they're generally super right wing. I know a few.
I've met quite a few of them that are.
I know
my
a few,
father's not, but I've met quite a few of them that are. Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a single libertarian in Congress who's not right wing. So that should tell you all you need to know about the Libertarian Party in the U.S. anyway. But but a big part of it comes down to the fact, like, if you don't convince people to come out and vote for you, then yeah, you lost the election, not the voter. So
I mean, you have one job during an election time, and that is get the vote.
Yeah.
Convince me that you are worthy of my vote. You don't just get my vote. You've got to prove to me you're going to do a good job running my country. Mine. Not
and
yours,
so,
mine.
Yeah. And
maybe
so
yours too, but mine.
Yeah. So a couple of things that really,
Get to
really,
act like you're entitled to my vote.
yeah, and trust me, both Republicans and Democrats both just feel entitled to people's votes, um, which is why, like, one of the biggest problems I actually see. I love straight up election reforms such as ranked choice voting. I think is a giant step forward in developing more independent minded candidates. It also
I'm so
it
glad
actually,
it passed in so many places.
yeah, well, it tends to decrease partisan fence posting, because the fact is like, if you want to be someone's second choice, um, you don't want to completely rail against everything that they believe in, and paint them as an enemy. So
Yeah.
so it tends to foster more cooperation and a little bit more shared beliefs versus opposing beliefs.
Yeah, because
Which,
I mean, with the way that we do things right now, it's us versus them. We don't have to get them to like us. We've just got to get them to not be able to stand the other guy more than they can't stand us.
yeah, which is it's a pretty big symptom of particularly American democracy, actually.
It's pretty skeezy.
Well, it's because of a lot of structural flaws in American democracy. The way it works, and just kind of the way it was set up from the beginning, which is one just winner take all, right? Which is actually more so like the fact is that focuses on plurality versus majority election wins. Like you don't need 50% of the vote to win any election in the United States, with the exception of the Electoral College for the presidency. That's the only one. Presidents and vice presidency. That's literally the only popular election in the country that, for an individual anyway, that the majority matters. Like, if you exclude recent reforms towards ranked choice voting and things like that, it's far more so that no, you just need a 0.1. You just need one more vote than the next closest person, and so.
Yeah.
Oh, dropped out for a second. She'll be back real quick.
I apologize. It dropped the call.
No worries.
Hey, are we still good?
Yep, we're still live. Just let me get things set back up.
Right.
And we are back. Okay.
I'm sorry, technical difficulty. I have no idea why it just did that. I feel like a lot of people, they feel like their voice isn't being heard. I think that ranked choice voting is a big thing that really does need to be considered because it's simple enough to understand. It's basic poker terms. And then, it's simple enough to implement, and it very thoroughly solves the issue of not feeling as though you're being heard, because then if your guy definitely isn't going to win, you still have an option. You have several options while still stating, okay, but my first choice was this guy because, obviously I disapprove of all of you other people.
Yeah. And, but I tend to think ranked choice voting is one of my favorite reforms in the country. But I tend to think it skirts over the single largest issue in American democracy, and the biggest and the most pressing issue in election reform, which is legalized bribery.
We got to get money out of politics. It drives me crazy. These big companies being able to donate how much to these? I mean, there's no way that individuals like us could ever make that.
Yeah, and you're wrong. Like it's legalized bribery. That's all it is. Because they'll tell you, oh yeah, no, this corporation gave me $500,000 this year for my re-election campaign, but no, that doesn't influence my opinion at all.
Not in any way does it influence their opinion. They just gave you all of that money because they just completely agree with everything that you have to say enough to give you that much. No.
Yeah, they assisted me in holding on to my individual power by such significant margins compared to an individual.
Yeah.
that
People try to explain that whole concept to me to try and make it seem as though it's not legalized bribing, and I just feel insulted because I feel like they're trying to tell me that I'm stupid.
yeah, and well, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, which is generally the fact that politicians in this country, especially for about the past 7 years or so, have just been telling people, like every citizen in the country, that no, unlimited campaign contributions by corporations is totally fine, and
Yes,
by wealthy
and
individuals.
yeah,
Um,
my stance on that is my stance on that is do not urinate on my foot and then tell me that it is raining.
yeah, um, and so, but that's, to me, that's the single biggest issue um, in election
It
reform.
really is.
It tips the scales, in large part because like establishment politicians both believe that they have to rely on these massive amounts of donations to win, but they don't.
And so then they believe that they kind of do have to do this like insider trading where it's like I'll pass this or help to pass this if you continue to give me this bit of money so I can continue to get elected.
Yeah,
You know, and they
and
feel like
so
they got to play that game, which just kneecap.
yeah, and so that's why like, um, you know, Democrats and Republicans in Congress, like they constantly agree on absolutely everything related to giving as much money as possible to defense contractors, to wealthy corporations, um, to basically the people that fund their campaigns, and they've just agreed on that for decades, and and so like, and so that's the problem, right? It's been the problem since basically the start of the country. Basically at the beginning, like only landowners could vote anyway, so it didn't really affect, like it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because well, only the wealthy people were voting anyway, so they didn't have to care
Yeah.
what the commoners thought. But as you expand voting rights and more and more people are allowed to vote, all of a sudden you have to figure out a way to tip the scales in favor of the wealthy,
Yeah.
and that's what they do. And so, as we continue to do, and that's it. That's like if you want to make the single biggest change in in American democracy, just ban corporations from lobbying, corporations and individuals and unions, and like ban them all from lobbying and
It should
creating
be
political action communities, and yeah, just get it all out.
It should be
Take it all out.
individuals and communities. It should be state governments and going and like it should be the individuals. It should not be these independent entities.
Yeah. Well, exactly, and that's right where we are, right? But that's
I
that's
think
something
we've
that
said about as much on the topic as
we can.
we've said about as much on that as we can for the time that we have allotted.
Yeah, probably just about. Let me think if there's any of the last things I want to drop in here before we go to break. And I don't really think so. For the most part, I think I think that about covers it. We'll definitely be touching back on this more and more and more and more and more, and I'll probably rail against money in politics just about every single week because it's the thing that makes me the most angry outside of the media covering for corporate Democrats. So which is a whole nother can of worms, but
I mean, we
kinda
could keep going on for years and years about this. So we'll definitely we will
But
have
for
more
now-
than enough opportunity.
Yeah, but for now, we will take a quick little break. So we will be back in just a couple of minutes. While we're away, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, wherever you're watching us. We'd love
Make
that.
sure to comment and talk to each other, get to know all of your like-minded viewers and whatnot.
Yeah, be fantastic.
And we'll see y'all in a minute.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm. My internet seems to be doing fine. Um, I've not had any problems whatsoever so far tonight.
Hello, hello, hello,
Hi,
everyone.
everyone. Welcome back.
Welcome back. So, it's a very busy time of year. So, I doubt that we're getting a lot of people here for this at the moment just because of this holiday travel, um, everything associated with it. But one of the big things that we like to talk about is obviously we want to be sure to include something pagan related in every kind of episode for sure. We are the pagan viewpoint. We look at everything from at least from Alyssa's side, from a very pagan viewpoint, and my
Mm-hmm.
side from um, which is kind of
Yeah.
the best way to describe my beliefs at the moment.
Mm.
But um, one of the things that we definitely want to touch on, especially on our Christmas Eve episode,
Mm.
um,
Yes.
is kind of Yule and Christmas. And no, they're not the same thing.
Mm.
They're very much
It
not the
is
same thing.
not. No.
And
Um.
yeah, but I'll kind
Well,
of let
so
Alyssa take the lead.
so right now is the time of year when a lot of the different solstice celebrations are sort of butting up together head to head. You've got Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Christmas, Yule,
Mm-hmm.
all of these different ones from these varying societies and cultures that are just they're butting heads one right after the other, and everyone's arguing It's like, well, you should say, this. You should say Merry Christmas. You should say Happy Holidays, and it all gets all sort of up in the air. Um, and from the pagan perspective, it seems as though we spend a lot of our time trying to say that like a lot of those traditions and whatnot originated with our tradition. And while that can, in a lot of ways, be true, at this point, I'd like to say, just on behalf of my Christian friends, the Christian people, the Abrahamic religions, the non-pagan folk, have made a lot of those traditions their own in a lot of ways. So at this point, they are similar. They are not the same. A Christmas tree is not going to be the same as a Yule tree
Yeah.
in the end. And, a lot of the food traditions just have to do with, like, and people say similarities between that. A lot of that just has to do with the fact that it's the harvest season, and the things that we eat at these festival gatherings are usually the things that have just come to harvest. They're the freshest, they're the most nutritious, they're the things that are going to give you something really good to stick to your bones. And so, of course, there's going to be overlap, is what I want to say about it. The differences in the butting of the heads, because this happens at Easter and Imbolc and all of these other different festivals as well. The overlap is there because there's a need, and because there is only a certain amount of these resources to go around, and only a certain different ways to mix them towards what it is that we need as humans.
Yeah,
So
well, and there's a lot of
blurring of the line.
yeah, well, and there's a lot of subtle and then not so subtle hostility between Christianity and just about every other religion on the planet.
Yeah.
And and a big part of it too, especially with pagan cultures in particular, is because Christianity just like intentionally absorbed a lot of pagan traditions when they kind of just decided to make Christianity the official religion of an entire empire that hitherto, before that point, had no official religion.
Yeah.
And so like it's kind of hard to like there's historical resentment there.
It's really hard to get over the historical resentment. That is definitely for truth. Having grown up in a family of witches, that resentment is most definitely alive and well. I'm just looking to, it's like the cycle of anger and hatred has to end somewhere. And I figure at this point, it's like, as long as it is bringing someone joy, I don't care where it started.
Yeah.
And that's just my standard. That's just the Ravenwood standard, is as long as it's not hurting anyone and is fulfilling that need in them, let them have it. That's always been my stance on it. But also, whatever the case, whatever your religion, whatever your background, whatever your spirituality, human beings are human beings are human beings, and we all have specific health needs, which is why in the nature portion of this is a little bit more in the life topic right now, but in the nature portion of this, eat seasonal foods. Eat them.
Yeah.
Eat them. Eat them when they are seasonally. It's okay every once in a while. It's like, oh, I'm just really craving watermelon. But if you're having watermelon in the fall, that's way out of season. Not only is it not healthier for you, because it doesn't have the same vitamins and minerals and nutrients that it's supposed to have, that you're supposed to be consuming, but also it's not healthy for you because your internal clock says, wait a second, that's not supposed to be here now. We evolved on this planet to go with the seasons. To just take a moment, some time to remember that all of these different holidays and marking points, they're just there to remind us this is a time for this.
Yeah.
This is a time for resting and building up and preparation for the next year. And
food traditions around the holidays are this kind of like interesting thing, because a lot of them are carryovers from a lot of old traditions. A lot of them are far more ethnically cultural than they are even religiously cultural. In that sense, like you tend to eat the foods you eat on the holidays because of where your family is from, versus
it's like whenever we went to Grammys for. Yeah, it's like whenever we went to Grammys for Yule, she always had a pancetta because she was from Sicily. so of course she wasn't gonna have no turkey.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
And
And
she had pork
so,
belly. It was good.
and so a big part of it is like, yeah, there's a huge chunk of this country that that did emigrate here from Central and Northern Europe, the Central and Northern European continents, and a huge chunk of their diet from about October to February consists of a lot of tubers,
Yeah.
a lot of wheat,
Oh yeah.
and a lot of like um, livestock that have kind of been saved up to go through
Oh yeah, it was
and
like
be eaten over
stored
the winter.
meat and dried meat and stews and hearty foods, things that are like you're gonna eat a normal sized portion of it, but it's gonna last you
Yeah,
a pretty long time
because
because of the starches and the minerals and the tubers and then the
yeah,
calories
and
and the wheat and other stuff.
yeah, and a big part of them is like like they grow like around this time of year in late fall.
Oh yeah.
Late fall, yeah, it's it's pointed out by a lot of people. I still think people don't fully comprehend because a huge chunk of the country lives in what amounts to like the northern plains.
Yeah.
So look at it this way: Omaha, Nebraska, which is the dead center of the continental United States, right, sits about the same longitudinally as southern UK. As far as like how far north it is, the United States is very far north.
Yeah.
Like like most of the country is actually pretty far north, and most people don't realize it. It's just it's so vast. But but winter doesn't start till like the end of December, people, as a season. For the
As
northern
a season,
hemisphere.
oh yeah.
And so a lot of farming goes through to the end of November, beginning in December, and a lot of things that really ripen and are great to grow in the end at the end of fall, because you grow a lot of things up through around September, and then you plant new things and grow them through to the end of fall. Is that a lot of tubers? So like your fall wheat, like your like all these things which are
Now, see, I grew up in Texas. It is almost always warm there, but I've never. I was born on March 31st, and that means that people say, "Oh, you've got a springtime birthday," and I'm like, "Please," because it's not spring. That's not spring.
yeah,
no,
it's like the
no,
very
no. That is
earliest of spring.
that is the tail end of winter. That is, you go out in a tank top and you are shivering even in Texas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're like
winter doesn't end
you're
until
like 10
March,
days into spring.
April. I'm
Yeah.
like right there at my birthday
Yeah.
is the very
It's-
beginning of spring.
Well, and so dovetailing a little bit, but even our like our seasons are starting to shift a little bit, which is kind of interesting. Where like winter's just lasting longer into the year in the U.S. at least.
Yeah.
So like it's starting later, and like tradition like
Yeah, we had
'cause-
snow in April last year. It was mad.
but it's actually quite common now up in the Midwest for snowfalls in April and May. Like we'll have ice storms into May, which is like almost like the middle of spring, as like the season, and trust it affects a lot of things, but it's just it's so interesting because we're talking a lot about kind of harvesting other foods here, right?
Yeah.
But like we have to like especially when we start to look at Yule and Christmas, there's a lot of things that are different. There's so many things that are different. But the vast majority of it, most is actually pretty much the same. Like
there are very specific differences, but a good deal of those traditions and things they blend almost seamlessly.
Yeah. Like if you take out very specific individual religious practices, like because Hanukkah, like it has its own specific religious practices. Like Christianity has its own specific religious practices in relation to like the Advent, So like the first 24 days of December, leading up to the 25th of December. So the Christmas, like the ending the Advent on Christmas Eve service at midnight. You know, all these types of things. You have very specific religious practices, but outside of those, all the practices are pretty much just cultural, and they're almost the same, just about anywhere you go, and like, they're really not all that different. And so focusing so much on like what took what from, like what tradition comes from where, or anything like that. No, they just all kind of come from everywhere.
Which is why it's always bothered me. Yeah, it's why it's always kind of bothered me, that whole concept of the war on Christmas. You're acting like you're the only one with a holiday.
Yeah, like Christmas wasn't even a federal holiday until like 80 years ago. Like federal holidays for the most part like weren't a thing. Like federal holidays were generally reserved for like very specific, like a Veterans Day, which actually didn't even come around until the 1920s. Like that isn't even a very old federal. Like no more, like outside of the 4th of July, I actually can't think of just about any long-standing federal holiday.
No, most of them are newer traditions.
Yeah, but a lot of them, but a lot of like things that became federal holidays were just societal traditions.
Yeah.
And so
I mean,
everyone,
like Thanksgiving wasn't a thing for the longest time, and then all of a sudden it was a thing.
Yeah, and so like, and basically Thanksgiving is basically just a fall harvest feast. It's basically all it is.
It's one of the first of the harvest feasts. That's it.
Yeah, that's basically all
it is. I always thought about it. It's like it's the start of the good food.
Yeah, right. And
get the pie.
Yeah, and so all these different like traditions and holidays and everything associated with, like, they're all just cultural, and then somehow like this weird thing happened in the U.S. in particular where, like, this is a separate topic. Like, as far as the domination of like Christian as like Christianity as a political force, which is actually only about 40 years old, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like it really is. Like it kind of gets
started
in like the 50s.
It got a little started in the 50s. It was romanticized throughout the 80s and 90s. But it's just I feel
we all just need. Sorry, I was receiving. No, I did. You still?
I can. Although your headphones did disconnect, so you are on.
Disconnected from my.
But that's fine. We can. Quick technical difficulties. I'll talk for a second while
technical difficulties. Yes, go ahead.
Finishes out, and gosh, I'm not even I didn't even get to all the things I wanted to talk about, and we've been going on for like 15 minutes. There's just so much to talk about in regards to the sharing of cultural and religious traditions across multiple, especially like a non-homogeneous society like the U.S. That we can't really be focused on those things, and we just need to really start to go back to basics and start to focus on why do we celebrate these things.
Oh my goodness. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Fantastic. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get the Discord to load, and for some reason just shut off my...
but you're good right now, so don't touch.
Screen. There we go. Okay.
So don't touch.
I'm good. I'm trying to get to where I'm on the same screen.
But yeah, and so I have a lot more to say, but I don't really have a lot more to say that I can sum up in like 30 seconds. So that's about all I have. Besides just saying, like, enjoy your holidays, people.
Yeah.
And let everyone else enjoy theirs. Just cool.
And then with that being said, I think it's time, because it's getting on towards 8 o'clock, to go ahead and take a moment and do our group manifestation. Yeah. And this week I've got one from a couple of friends of mine, Tree and Alex. They're trying to manifest a pull-behind trailer RV. So just take a moment and take a deep breath and just hold some space for Tree and Alex in their endeavors to get their RV. They've been working very, very hard towards this, and I feel like the universe is going to be going out of its way very soon to get them exactly the right. I hope so.
I believe.
If you have any requests for a manifestation that you'd like in your life, you'd like some help with, make sure to comment. And while you're at it, go ahead and like and share and subscribe just for funsies. So make sure to comment the thing you want to be manifested, and then my partner and I here will be selecting whichever ones we feel we have enough room for that are the most important, and maybe we will be heard on next show.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, that does it for this week's episode. Be sure to like, follow, subscribe, share on all social media platforms. We are the Pagan Viewpoint on basically everywhere. Just Pagan Viewpoint, sorry, not the. I always want to add the. I really should have added that. It would have been easy for me. But just Pagan Viewpoint. And then new clips will be going up over the next couple of days. This episode will be available to watch again next week in full, slightly edited down. And then we will have the audio version coming out in podcast form in the next couple of weeks. Just I'm trying to get the whole production schedule in line around the holidays.
Right.
Fun time to launch.
It's going to be a work in progress.
Yeah.
Until we speak again, my lovelies, please remember that you do not have to dim anybody else's shine in order to brighten your own. So much love, my people, and shine bright.
Have a fantastic night, y'all. Bye-bye.